St. Benedict University, a prestigious private institution nestled in the heart of Lagos, was known for its strict academic standards, well-dressed students, and most of all, for its most feared lecturer, Miss David. Miss David was a stern woman in her late 40s. She never smiled, rarely conversed with her colleagues, and made it a mission to fail students, especially the female ones. Her reputation for wickedness had earned her the nickname Madam Evil. While others called her a sadist, she was simply an enigma, a loner who seemed to detest the world. Everything changed the semester Flora arrived. Flora was a breath of fresh air, a cheerful and intelligent young lady. She quickly won over both lecturers and students with her radiant smile, her ability to solve complex problems in class, and her knack for bringing people together. She organized studied groups, helped out with extracurricular activities, and even brought cakes for her classmates' birthdays. Naturally, Flora's sunny demeanor clashed with Miss David's stormy presence. From the first day of her literature class, Miss David seemed to zero in on Flora, criticizing her answers and even reducing her test scores for what seemed like minor mistakes. However, unlike most students, Flora didn't let it bother her. One rainy evening, Flora was walking across the school parking lot when she noticed Miss David struggling to load a pile of heavy books and boxes in her car. Students passed, lecturers passed, avoiding eye contact as usual, but Flora stopped. "Ma'am, may I help you with that?" Flora asked, her voice warm and genuine. Miss David looked up, startled and surprised. "Help? Why? Why do you want to help me?" And Flora replied, "Because you need it." Miss David hesitated, then nodded. Together, they managed to pack the boxes and books into Miss David's car. For the first time, Flora saw a flicker of gratitude in Miss David's eye, though it disappeared almost as quickly as it came. The following weeks passed, and people started to notice the unexpected shifts from Miss David. She became softer towards Flora. At least, she was smiling sometimes. She began to acknowledge her in class, even cracking a small rare smile when Flora answered a particular tough question. Before long, Miss David made Flora a personal assistant, entrusting her with class assignments, scheduling tests with other students, and other administrative tasks. They were sometimes seen having lunch together in Miss David's office, discussing next class topics, scheduling tests for the students, and on other times, seeing Flora consoling Miss David when she looks down and upset by her past. The transformation didn't go unnoticed. Students whispered, wondering how Flora had managed to break through the iron exterior of Madam Evil. Even the lecturers were surprised, wondering how a young lady like Flora could break down the walls that Miss David had built. One evening, as they walked late in her office, Flora decided to ask the question that had been on her mind for a few weeks. "Ma'am," she began cautiously, "why do people think you are mean? You weren't always like this, were you?" Miss David surprised and froze for a moment, then sighed deeply. "No, I wasn't." Miss David revealed the story she had kept hidden for years. She had once been a warm, vibrant person who loved teaching and adored her students. She was married to a fellow lecturer at St. Benedict's, a man she loved deeply. They had 2 children together and what she thought was a perfect life. But that life shattered when her husband began an affair with one of her students, a bright and ambitious young woman. The affair became the talk of the university, and before long, her husband and our children left for Canada with the younger woman. "They were my world, Flora," she said as her voice broke. "My husband, my children, even my colleagues, they all knew. No one warned me. No one stood by me. I felt betrayed by everyone. And the pain turned into anger. That's how I became this." Flora listened, her heart aching for the woman before her. "I am so sorry, ma'am," she said softly. "But you don't have to carry that pain alone anymore." In the weeks that followed, Flora's kindness continued to chip away at the walls Miss David had built around herself. Slowly, she began to open up, not just to Flora, but to her colleagues and even her students. She would bake some nice, delicious pastries like cakes, puff, meat pies, sausage rolls, and bring them to class, sharing them to her students who would like to have some. She would also take some to her colleagues and apologize for her behavior in the past. Miss David started smiling more often in class, giving constructive feedback instead of harsh criticism, and offering support to who struggled academically. She started having extracurricular activities in class where students who were struggling can always join a class after school hours for free. To Flora, Miss David became more than a lecturer. She became a mentor, a mother figure, and a friend. Miss David, in turn, found a renewed sense of purpose. With Flora's encouragement, she began writing letters to her children, hoping to reconnect with them someday. Years passed since the tumultuous events that shaped Miss David's life. Flora had graduated from university, a proud achievement that Miss David celebrated as if she were her own daughter. Despite moving on with their lives, Flora and Miss David maintained a strong bond, their relationship evolving from teacher and student to close friends and confidants. Meanwhile, Miss David's dedication to her work earned her a well-deserved promotion to the dean of the university. But even with professional success, her heart ached for her estranged children. She never gave up trying to reach them, making countless attempts to reconnect. One evening, as she graded papers in her study, her phone rang. To her astonishment, it was her ex-husband, Gabriel. His voice was hesitant, yet sincere, as he apologized for his betrayal, acknowledging the pain he had caused. Miss David listened silently, tears pooling in her eyes. When he handed the phone to their children, she was overwhelmed with emotion. One by one, they expressed their regrets and asked for her forgiveness. "I have already forgiven you," she said, her voice trembling with joy. The call reignited a spark of hope and excitement in her heart, especially with Christmas approaching. The holiday season came quickly, and Miss David decided to host a Christmas gathering at her home. Flora, a few students, and some of Miss David's colleagues filled the house with laughter and cheer. As the festivities were in full swing, the doorbell rang. When she opened the door, she froze in surprise. Standing before her were her ex-husband and her children, holding gifts and smiling nervously. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Then Miss David's composure melted away, and she embraced the children with tears streaming down her cheeks. They hugged her tightly, repeatedly asking for her forgiveness. Her ex-husband too knelt down and asked for her pardon. Miss David, overcome with emotion, pulled them all into a warm embrace. "You're here, and that's all that matters. I forgave you long ago." The family joined the gathering, and the house was filled with joy as they shared a delicious Christmas meal. Stories were exchanged, laughter filled the air, and for the first time in years, they felt like a complete family. As the evening drew to a close, Miss David stood up to make an announcement. Her voice was steady but tinged with excitement. "I want to share some wonderful news with you," she began. "Sanusi, a dear friend I met at my book club, has asked me to marry him, and I said yes." Then she pointed at Sanusi. He stood up and waved to everyone. The room erupted in applause and cheers. Her children and friends rushed to congratulate her, and Flora, beaming with pride, embraced her like a sister. Months later, Miss David and Sanusi tied the knot in an intimate ceremony. Flora stood by her side as her chief bridesmaid, a role she accepted with honor and love. Their friendship deepened, and Flora became an inseparable part of Miss David's life, not just as a friend, but as a family. The Sunday after Miss David's beautiful wedding to Sanusi was a day she would never forget. She and her husband decided to attend a special Thanksgiving service at their church. The couple were filled with love and reconciliation. As Miss David sat surrounded by the people who mattered most, her husband, Sanusi, Flora, her ever-loyal friend, her children, who had found their way back into her life, and to her surprise, even her ex-husband, Gabriel, and his wife, Nancy. The service was filled with music, gratitude, and a powerful sermon about redemption and the healing power of forgiveness. Miss David felt every word resonate deeply within her. The lightness in her heart, affirming that her journey of pain, growth, and reconciliation had brought her to a place of peace. After the service, They gathered for an intimate after party at Miss David's home. It was a small gathering of family and close friends, filled with warmth and laughter. As the group sat down for a toast, Miss David stood to speak. "I want to thank all of you for being here today," she began, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "This moment, this day, is one I have never thought I would see. It's not just about love or even forgiveness. It's about moving forward, dropping the burdens of anger and pain, and embracing the people we are now." She turned to Flora, her eyes glistening. "Flora, my dear, you were my light when I was trapped in darkness. You refused to let me stay in that hole of anger and bitterness. You reminded me of the power of love and the importance of letting go. I owe you so much, not just for your friendship, but for helping me to see that life could still be beautiful." The room was silent as Miss David took a deep breath and looked across the table at Nancy, her ex-husband's wife, and her ex-student. For a moment, the room held its breath. Then Miss David walked over to Nancy, a warm smile spreading across her face. "Nancy," she said softly, "for the first time today, I want to truly say this. I forgive you. I forgive everything. And I want to thank you for taking care of my children when I couldn't be there for them. You gave them a home when I was lost. And I will always be grateful to you for that." Tears welled up in Nancy's eyes as she stood. And for the first time, the two women hugged. It was a moment of release, of healing, and of starting anew. "All things are made new," Miss David said as she pulled away, a smile radiant. The family erupted into cheers and applause. The weight of years of pain and misunderstanding finally lifted. The rest of the evening was filled with joy, laughter, and promises of a future filled with love and togetherness. From that day forward, Miss David's children visited her more frequently, ensuring that they were always in Nigeria for festive holidays. And during her travels with Sanusi, they made it a priority to visit the children in Canada, strengthening the bond that had once been broken. Their lives became a celebration of forgiveness and family, proving that even in the darkest moments, love and resilience could heal any wound. Together, they became one big, beautiful family, a testament to the power of reconciliation, love, and the courage to let go of the past.